Oh my goodness, thank you so much for this very warm welcome. Have a seat, everybody.
Laverne Cox, she's amazing in Orange is the New Black. I love everything she stands for.
Arizona loves you.
Are you from Arizona?
I'm from Mother Russia, but hey, I'm here
But now she's a native.
Remarkable, the things she was saying, just how well educated she is.
And then calling a trans woman a man as an act of violence, I thought was really awesome. Because a lot of people aren't very serious about misgendering. They're like, oh, it's not a big deal, but it's like, that's who I am, and you should be respectful of that.
Yes.
That was one of my favorite aspects of like
pronouns matter.
Yes, it does.
Like just those little things, I can just see those already in the story. I'm just like,
I felt a lot with the shame part, and I know that at one point she spoke about she was so ashamed that she tried to, when she was in school for a while, she was trying to push it down and hide who she was, and I just identified with that so much because there was a point in time where I knew I was trans. I knew it was going to be hard, and it seemed like my life would be easier if I was to go on pretending that I wasn't and keep it a secret from everyone.
Yeah, I love the way that she spoke about it, and she was able to keep the attention of everyone, and she tried very hard to be politically correct, and I appreciated that a lot. And I like how, because she gave personal stories, it made me want to listen more, because it created this trust with her audience and who she was speaking to, which was wonderful.
I think my favorite takeaway of the night was the topic of awareness, that just because you're aware that something is there, like transgender awareness is so present in the media now, that doesn't mean that it's going to become more accepted just because people know about it. It has to be positive awareness for it to make a positive change, or else nothing is going to change.
I came out to her mom about the bullying and stuff, and she said, like, oh, well, what are you doing? What's wrong with that? It's kind of like going on top of her people. Her mom wasn't trying to be awful or malicious. She was just trying to be like, well, I don't want you to get hurt, so try to change yourself, try to do this. But saying that to a kid is like, there's something wrong with you, and you need to pretend to not be that way. And I think that's where the shame starts. And it's from places of love, but that comes from family, but a lot of the time it's very misdirected and ruins a person's self-esteem and their self-worth, and it takes so long to rebuild that. And it's just like, I'm glad she's at the point right now, and she's so blessed to have like a mother that recognizes her and family that supports her, and a lot of people don't have that, so I think it's very important. Like groups like 1 in 10, it makes a family for these kids where a lot of them don't have support from home. So, because that's where we came from, 1 in 10, and just go in there and see.
What I relate to her most as is a human being. I really like the fact that she didn't just say that I'm trans or I'm a person of color or all the different things. She was herself. And the other thing I really liked about her, and I've seen a lot of public speakers, she has a gift for public speaking, and honestly, not many actors do. Most actors really kind of fall down on public speaking. My name is Brianna Sandy. I was born again in August of 1978. I am 55 years of age. And in August of 2014, I'd say about 8 months into my transition, my church called me in on 2 separate meetings. One, they wanted to see where I was at theologically, and they couldn't come up with any reason biblically or scripturally to tell me why I didn't belong in church. But they didn't tell me they were going to kick me out of my church, but I ended up being called back in August. That was the first meeting was in July, actually on my son's birthday, July the 11th. And then August 20th, I was kicked out. I was offered stories with local and national media to expose this church.
Her name was Emma Cox, but we called her Madea, sort of like that Tyler Perry character, but nothing like that Tyler Perry character. Madea was an amazing, incredible woman. She basically raised 10 kids by herself, and she did it working in the homes of white folks, cleaning and cooking. She was a domestic worker, and she could barely read and write, but she had such a sense of dignity and poise and pride about herself that she instilled in all of her children and grandchildren. And when she passed away, it was a very difficult time for me and my family. I remember being up late one night grieving her loss. I lay in my bed, and I remember thinking that she was up in heaven looking down on me, and I imagined she knew every single thought that I was having. And I imagined she knew that I was having what I thought were sinful thoughts about other boys. And I imagined she was extremely disappointed in me, and the thought of disappointing Medea made me not want to live. And so I went to our medicine cabinet and took an entire bottle of pills and swallowed them. I then went to sleep, hoping not to wake up. I did wake up the next day with a terrible stomach ache, and I remember saying to myself when I survived that I would do everything that I could to push down these feelings I was having about other boys. I would do everything that I could to act the way that I was supposed to, so I could make Medea proud, so I could make my mother and everybody proud. I think it's important to note that 41% of all transgender people report having attempted suicide. 41% compared to 1% of the rest of the population. Yeah, this really happened. And believe it or not, I was the son in question. They were very confused. And some of you who know my story may have heard this before, but what you might not know is the inciting incident which led to the call to my mother. So we had gone to Six Flags on a church trip a few weeks before this. More about the church later. So we gone to Six Flags on a church trip, and I had a very little bit of spending money, and I remember going to the gift shop at Six Flags, and the second I walked into the crowded gift shop at Six Flags, I saw it. A handheld fan. It had peacocks on it. It was fabulous. And the second I saw this handheld fan, I knew I had to have it. Now, what you should know about this is I'd seen Gone with the Wind a few weeks before this. And for those of you who don't know, the main character of Gone with the Wind, Scarlett O'Hara, famously and very glamorously fans herself with a handheld fan. And so I'm sitting in 3rd grade fanning myself. Just fanning away, feeling very Scarlett O'Hara, feeling very Gone with the Wind, fabulous. And Miss Ridgway looks at me and she says, "Come here and bring that thing with you." And then she marches me down the hall to Miss Fairley's classroom, the 5th grade teacher, and she says to me, "Show her what you were doing with that thing." And I'm like, "Yeah!" I start fanning myself, fanning away, my invisible hair blowing in the wind. She's like, "Okay, stop. Now go back to class." And then my mother got the call. And this really happened. And so I remember being in the therapist's office, and the therapist asked me if I knew the difference between a boy and a girl. And in my infinite wisdom as a 3rd grader, because 3rd graders are so wise, right? Right? I was. I said...
I love you back. Thank you for the first story.